Well, we're on to our second one in our series that we're going to do on the Ten Commandments um, this time. So we're into the general title of these, the commandments for the 21st century. So we dealt with thou shalt not covet last week. And so this week we move on. We're going in the reverse order to dealing with the 9th commandment, which deals, thou shalt not bear false witnesses against thy neighbour. So do not testify falsely against your neighbour. If the 10th commandment was about invisible and weightless thoughts, but all the things we desire and covet that we see around us, this one is just slightly more different in the sense it concerns more about the words we utter, words that can bring comfort or hurt, words that can enrage or tempt, words that can reveal truth or deceive. And that's important. That's what this commandment's all about. It's about us speaking truth in all circumstances. Psalm 15 says this: who may worship in your sanctuary? Who may enter your presence on your holy hill? Those who lead blameless lives and do what is right, speaking the truth from sincere hearts. Very important, that phrase, speaking the truth from sincere hearts. Those who refuse to gossip or harm their neighbours or speak evil of their friends. Those who despise flagrant sinners and honour the faithful, followers of the Lord, and keep their promises even when it hurts. Those who lend money without charging interest, and those who cannot be bribed to lie about the innocent. Such people will stand forever. Well, I think this is David summing up this commandment very well. If you want to be someone who's with God for eternity, you need to speak the truth from sincere hearts. Now remember, we're following these 10 commandments from really John's book, who wrote these some years ago, but still very evident for us today. He says at the beginning of the chapter on this commandment, the loss of truth in the public world is well known, and it seems that barely a week goes by without some major event centering on claims and countering claims of lying. You may have spoke that a decade ago, but how so much true that is today. This commandment is just more than a simple intellectual rule that we speak the truth. It's also not abusing our words for our advantage. It's using good words of truth to build honest relationships with others, whether family or otherwise. Lies are not simply wrong, lies hurt people. And I suppose if there's one politician in particular has succeeded everyone else by his claims that his opponents always report fake news, then we know we don't have to name this person, do we? But the 9th commandment requires us to be honest in our public statements as well as our private statements to those close to us. Knowingly giving false testimony by leaving something out or of a story, telling a half-truth, twisting the facts or inventing falsehood breaks this commandment. And God warns us against deception. But we have to recognize that very much in our society in the 21st century, that deception is a way of life for many people. Fake news is now flying off the pages of the internet at an alarming rate, where people make it up. I mean, I just happened by mistake this morning, almost, when I went to turn on Berkshire Radio, I turned on to Radio 4 and I heard an interview with Franklin Graham, the son of the great evangelist, accusing the 10 Republican congressmen for taking bribes from the Democratic Party for voting to impeach Donald Trump. And when asked, where's his evidence? All he says, well, I've just believed it's happened because this is what happens in Congress, that people are bribed to vote in a certain way. I thought that was an appalling from a Christian leader. No evidence, and he makes a claim in public such as that. Is it today that the problem is that so many people do not regard lying as something that is wrong, but is often necessary, a way of life, if you like, a way to, if you keep on repeating the same lie and accusing the same things against other people, then it becomes truth. The trouble is, you can't trust that. Remember, we looked at a poll from YouGov last week about how Britons in particular think of the 10 commandments at the moment, and a number of the commandments they dismiss now as totally irrelevant. But this commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against other people, still contains a very high percent of people who think it's important, 87%. But it seems to me that there's a lot of people say one thing about this commandment and do another. That's why there is so much lying and deception and falsehood that are going on in this world today. Now, it may be that because we know so much more that's going on throughout the world and through people's lives, through social media, television and radio, books and newspapers, and everything else that goes with a modern world. I mean, in one sense, I'm sure that we all have known for generations that politicians are always economical with the truth, massaging statistics for their own point of view. And we know even then they're quite capable of inflating their own experiences, aren't they? So we are aware of that, but it's coming out from more than just politicians these days. The problem is that keeping this law is there to maintain the stability in society, all society. That's what this law maintains. If we don't bear false witness against our neighbours, then it will help maintain the stability of society. And is that why people talk about people being divided these days more than ever? A great opposing sides that we're seeing in America and we saw over the Brexit debate. Is it that this because people are not paying more attention to this commandment that all that sort of law is breaking down? But it will have consequences if it continues to do so. If you think about it, our whole justice system and the justice system of the free world is maintained by people telling the truth in courts of law. But of course, if they keep on peppering the courts and producing lies, that will not maintain our justice system, which is the consequence of that will be horrendous. The focus of this commandment is specifically to make sure that social and judicial justice is fair amongst all people, rich and poor, those haves and the have-nots. And all people of power should encourage trust and truthfulness in life. But we recognize even soon after this law was given to the people at the time of Moses, biblical history over and over again reminds us that the prophets kept on calling the people to tell the truth and to practice justice and fairness towards the poor, the marginalized, and the disadvantaged. And they had to keep on doing it. And so did Jesus when he came in his ministry. J. John says this: if the concept of truth is sliding down the slippery slope, then it has to be said that many philosophers have helped to grease its progress. There is no truth. There is only what you think of as truth. Instead of absolute truth, they propound that there are many relative truths as there are people on the planet. In such a revitalist view, the only truth that there can be is something private, personal, and individual. So what is true for you may not be true for me. There are no facts, only different opinions. And we recognize that this does go on in the world. This relativist thinking, the traditional concept of history, is constantly being challenged and changed. I suppose I knew this fact, but doing the research for this has reminded me of it. Simple things like Encarta is the free encyclopedia that Microsoft produces that's free worldwide. But did you know that Microsoft's director Martin was quoted as saying, if you look at the Battle of Waterloo in the English Encarta and the French Encarta, you will get two different versions of this battle and two different versions as to who won and what was the outcome of it. Is that surprising? That the Battle of Waterloo, we regard, I'm sure, in Britain as we won that, but not if you're French, you're not. It's quite widely reported in their textbooks that the French won the battle and came out on top after defeating the English at Waterloo. After all, the English retreated from Waterloo, didn't they? But I suppose the one good thing, even in this modern age, is that science, engineering, and medicine have remained entirely immune to the charms of relativism. Scientific theories are still proved true on the basis of experiments, not simply because we wish them to be true. We are given medicines because they have been demonstrated to work, not because of the hope of doctors. Now that's important, isn't it, with these current vaccines, the amount of fake news that comes out about these vaccines. How people can believe that the government is putting tracking devices in this vaccine, I just do not know. But we should be able to see from our established, I can't think of the word, it's gone from me at the moment, from our scientists and doctors who are given a specific pass to check these vaccines, that everything is done to make sure that vaccines that are only liable to work are given to people. Yes, it's true to say that some medicines are tested on a small group of people um, to go before they go worldwide. That's true, isn't it? With blood plasma recently, a report came out. They thought that blood plasma was one of the things could be given to people who had suffered from the coronavirus and produced antibodies, and this blood plasma containing the antibodies could be given to others and it would help. Well, it helped in a few cases, but it didn't help in most. So that's now been withdrawn. And this is all done because of the research of the establishment of good research departments in our country. But governments are always, I suppose, up to being challenged about how much propaganda they do put out. And that is true today as it has been before. One of my favourite programmes of all times was Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. Here's a clip. Classic comedy there, but it goes through a point, isn't it, about minutes and the recording of minutes. I mean, I was always grateful that when I was in post and ran churches with minutes and all that, we never had a problem. But in my later life, when I was on a few local council panels, there was often dispute over the recording of the minutes. And of course, the difficulty is that usually the chairman was in charge of the minutes. And if he didn't want to, for items to be discussed and all that, they weren't written up. And the time you came round to the next meeting, which was several months later, not everybody could remember. But we know there is difficulty in this thing, and of course now in this current decades, ever since Tony Blair, the government have produced spin doctors to help with the difficulties of running governments today and to try and smooth out everything and to work out the best ways of trying to present news and bad news to the country. And it was said by one cabinet secretary that, governments need that these days. It's the only way where government can function properly if the spin doctors and the special advisors have an input in massaging the news and what's released to the public. And we've had several instances, haven't we, this year with this man. But that's not good. Why do we lie? That's the question, isn't it? Is it to be deliberately to mislead or distort the truth? Or are most lies told to shift guilt from us? And it's amazingly easy for us to slip into telling lies. There is the sense where lots of people will claim that not quite telling the truth, and massaging some of the statements that are made and the records that are made is because people are just trying to shift a bit of guilt and mistakes from themselves. But this commandment is more than just about simple intellectual rules that truth is good and truth is right. It's saying that we should not abuse our power to massage the truth, because in the end, it will all damage our relationship with those we work for or those we govern. Lies are not just simply wrong. In the end, lies will always hurt people. James Emery White says this: people no longer seem to care about lying. We accept it. It doesn't bother us. We don't get upset anymore when someone exaggerates, falsifies, fabricates, or misrepresents the truth. We live in a day when we have been bombarded with erased tapes, tampered evidence, illicit cover-ups, padded resumes, exaggerated ads to the point that we've pretty much given up on the truth being a viable enterprise. Quite a statement, but I think there's quite a lot in what James says here. But this is surely this massaging of the truth is not new. Sir Walter Scott, one of the great Scottish poets, says this: "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive." The ninth commandment is not one of those don't do it sort of commandments, carte blanche. The ninth commandment really teaches us that we should be tellers of the truth. We must be people of the truth. It's the duty of Christians to bear witness to the truth of the gospel, Jesus Christ, seeking the salvation of the lost and their eternal blessings. Jesus is the truth about Jesus coming into this world as God's Son to bring about the possibility of salvation for all is the truth. And yet people often deny that. People deny that Jesus spoke truth. They deny that he wasn't the Son of God. And yet, as followers of Christ, we should stand up for that principle, that what Jesus said and did was what the truth is all about. So the ninth commandment then is there because there is a cost of lying. It's a cost. The ninth commandment tackles the whole issue of truth and lies. It points out that our use and abuse of truth will affect our relationships with others and will affect the lives of people. Lies, untruth, fake news, or whatever you want to call it, will hurt people. Don't know if you've ever seen the film Chernobyl that came out last year. I think it was quite a tremendous film. It's the story of the atomic power station that blew up nearly 25 years ago this April. And this whole film tells about the lies the Russian government told about what happened at Chernobyl. And it tells how the story of certain scientists battled about trying to get the truth out and to do get the government to do the right thing to save lives. Here's some excerpts from the film that are really about Valery Legasov, who was the senior nuclear physicist who realized what had happened and what was going to happen over that explosion at that power station, and how he battled in the background to get the Russian government to evacuate everybody from around it and to confess to the damage it was doing. I really recommend that film about that disaster. Still today, Russia claims only 31 people officially died because of that explosion. The UN calculates 16,000 people died premature deaths within the first 5 years of that explosion. And so it goes on. But very, very good film. But when we think about it, you see, we are avalanche with false pretenses, computer crime, and the way that modern scammers, they target the elderly persistently with their lies. How many phone calls? I had one last night, the scammer trying to get me to part with money because he said he could improve my internet and everything else. It's a load of rubbish. It's a well-known scam. And these people keep on. And you think how many people involved in these scams going throughout the world today. It must be absolutely colossal. You know, the consequences of this serious scamming thing must have astonishing claims on our society. You know, insurance companies now assume that most claims involve some element of dishonesty. The response is even more costly as society spends more and more on trying to prevent fraud, with investigative teams checking and double checking mechanisms. And to cover both the cost of the fraud and the preventive measures means that prices always go up. We pay more taxes because the tax people know that most people try to fiddle their taxes and put in false tax returns. And so it goes on. In this modern world of ours, people are constantly trying to cheat and not be truthful people. And Jesus says, be truth, speak truth. Don't defraud, don't make false claims, but don't bear false witness against your neighbour because there is a cost. And of course, the major thing that causes all this is our tongues. All of us do many wrong things, but if you can control your tongue, you are mature and able to control your whole body. By putting a bit into the mouth of a horse, we can turn the horse in different directions. It takes strong winds to move a large sailing ship, but the captain uses only a small rudder to make it go in any direction. Our tongues are small too, and yet they brag about big things. It takes only a spark to start a forest fire. The tongue is like a spark. It's an evil power that dirties the rest of the body and sets a person's entire life on fire with flames that come from hell itself. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures can be tamed and have been tamed, but our tongues get out of control. They are restless and evil and always spreading deadly poison. My dear friends, with our tongues we speak both praises and curses. We praise our Lord and Father, and we curse people who are created to be like God. This isn't right. Can clean water and dirty water both flow from the same spring? Can a fig tree produce olives or a grapevine produce figs? Does fresh water come from a well full of salt water? We have to remember that the tongue is an awfully powerful part of our body. The tongue is the only tool, it's said, that goes sharper with bad use. Jesus said, "You are children of your father, the devil, and you want to follow your father's desires. From the very beginning, he was a murderer and has never been on the side of truth, because there is no truth in him. When he tells a lie, he is only doing what is natural to him, because he is a liar and the father of all lies." So the thought is this from what Jesus is saying: when we lie, we ally ourselves with the devil. When we lie, we follow the evil one's ways. And Jesus spoke out the truth about the devil and asks us to become people of the truth. We need to become a people of truth. Jesus put it this way: simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. We are called as Christian disciples to be honest, moral, and to tell the truth. And we mustn't treat what we say lightly. Broken promises, telling falsehoods causes pain, and we will be known as untrustworthy people. We need to remember that we're in a spiritual battle here. The devil wants us to be fake news to people. That's his aim. That's all that he wanted us to be, to follow his ways and not stick to what God commands us to do. And that is not to bear false witnesses against our neighbour. So next week we'll look at thou shalt not steal.